people don't always feel good about using AI. There could be information overload. And by that, it is conceptually defined as people's feeling that they receive more information than they can effectively handle. The information overload experience, I think that's going to be like a major prevalent experience, at least for the time being.
Welcome to the Tippie Leads podcast. Stories from the University of Iowa's Tippie College of Business that will change the way you work and lead. I'm your host, Nick Westergaard. I teach at Tippie and lead our Story Lab program. This podcast provides another opportunity to share stories from Tippie with our community and beyond. Each season of Tippie Leads, we explore a grand challenge in today's changing world of work. This season, we're looking at artificial intelligence. What happens when AI becomes too much? Can AI overwhelm instead of empower? Too much information, or the wrong kind, can make learning harder and decision-making more complicated. First, we'll hear from Tippie's Yiduo Shao, who studies how AI and human collaboration intersect in the workplace. Then we'll hear from Tippie student Rylee Lueken, whose story about arriving at college shows how to manage feeling overwhelmed. And finally, we'll wrap everything up with a final Tip E just for you. Ready? Let's get started. Yiduo Shao is an assistant professor of management and entrepreneurship at the Tippie College of Business. She earned her PhD in management from the University of Florida and a BS in psychology from Peking University. Her research focuses on workforce trends, human-AI collaboration, and flexible digital work arrangements. Her work has appeared in top journals, and she has received funding from the National Science Foundation. So I'm fascinated by your work, especially as it relates to the impact that AI has on us in the workplace. So, I think we're quick to think, that more AI is better and helpful. But your work got me thinking twice about that. So how did you arrive at looking at this side of this very new technology?
That's a great question. So I think part of this is my background in psychology, and I study human resources, organizational behavior, which traditionally is a discipline focused on human being and that side of the workplace. So we care about their well-being and their productivity at the same time. So when this era of AI hit, I just naturally thought about, how is it going to impact the individual employees' well-being? Do they feel good about it, or are they going to feel stressed about it? So that was kind of the starting point of that research. And I think it was a fascinating kind of viewpoint, just because a lot of the decisions about whether we adopt AI or not is not made by employees. Sometimes it's already integrated into their workflow. And organizations or whatever executives or top management teams are going to make that decision. Are we going to spend this amount of money to buy this newly developed AI tool and integrate it into the workflow of our employees? And I think that's very reasonable. Oftentimes they care more, I would say, about the productivity, because that's all, it eventually is going to matter a lot for the company's profit, So, but I think on the other side of the coin, and what is unnoticed or what is unexamined predominantly is how the employees feel about it. Like, do they feel good? Are they realizing the potential that AI kind of promises to deliver? Or are there any unintended consequences on their well-being that AI may have, but those are not accounted for by the organizational manager when they decided to, we're going to adopt this AI to our workplace?
So what did you find in answer to that question about what most employees are thinking with regard to AI in their work?
I think the most major finding from that piece of research is people don't always feel good about using AI. I mean, it could have performance benefit. It could supply important information that we didn't know or we would have spent a long time searching for on the internet in just like a snap, right? So it could provide a lot of good information. I'm not saying AI is like useless, entirely, but I think another important side of that is there could be information overload. And by that it is conceptually defined as people's feeling that they receive more information than they can effectively handle. So this is almost like a TMI or too much information kind of experience. And I think that's kind of speaking at something that AI could potentially improve, but at this stage, it is a prevalent experience because we don't control like what AI is going to generate, what AI is going to provide us. There's little control over the content. And so I assume that the information overload experience, I think that's going to be like a major prevalent experience, at least for the time being.
So when it comes to too much information, do we know anything? Is it the volume of information? Is it relevance? Is it both?
Yeah, I think it is hard to tease them out because a lot of times if I receive information that is not relevant or is not useful for my job, I think that's not something I wanted to receive, right? So in my research, it was kind of this overall experience. I feel like I'm receiving information more so than I can handle. And a lot of them are probably going to be the ones that are loosely relevant to my work. Maybe it was identified by the AI as relevant, as something important. It could be redundant. It could be something that, oh, I already know how to handle this. I don't need the AI to provide additional piece of information to confirm that. So it could be all of those. But what we were focusing on in that study is, do the employees feel that they have that experience of information overload?
So you mentioned earlier your background in psychology, and I wonder, do we know anything about individual factors? People don't exist in a fixed state. So do we know anything about mindset or mood and how that speaks to how someone handles AI overload?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, actually, in that piece of research, we looked at two boundary conditions. And by boundary condition, it's really kind of like a it depends story. So, this hypothesized effect would apply to someone, but not everyone, not to everybody else. So, the two factors that we identified as boundary conditions, one is people's openness, and that's a personality trait. So, by openness, is essentially the extent to which people are open to new experiences. They are curious, they're imaginative, and of course, on the flip side, a low level of openness would mean that people are relatively inflexible. They are a little bit stubborn, or they're very used to the conventional way of doing things. They don't like to be very flexible. So with that, we found that actually the information overload experience from using AI is going to be reduced for employees with higher openness, for employees with more openness to the new experiences, such as AI. So back to the openness to experience finding, we found that the information overload experience from using AI is going to be alleviated among people who are more open to the new experience. So that speaks to the differential impacts of using AI from a personality trait angle. And of course, that doesn't really mean that, oh, as employers, you should only select people with high openness to use AI. But our thinking and our thought is that we should support those people who are, naturally born with somewhat lower level of openness, and to see whether we can help them to, train them with some strategies to manage information overload. So I just didn't want that message to be, mixed up or misrepresented. So that's the first factor. Another factor is more related to the momentary state. So the idea is that people differ from each other in traits, but there could also be something that fluctuates on a daily basis, and that's positive affect or positive emotion. So the more that people experience positive emotions, they're happier and etc., the more likely they're going to gain more knowledge. So the information are not going to be perceived as overloading or overwhelming, but it actually helps the employees learn and gain novel knowledge that could be useful for their work.
I wonder, as we think about this, it seems like so much of the conversation is centered around how organizations need to adapt to or adopt the technology, as opposed to spending some time thinking about adapting how they manage human performance with individuals potentially being inundated with so much information. Are there best practices for organizations wanting to both adopt AI and adapt their their performance systems to take into account employee well-being?
That's a great question. So, currently in the research field, there hasn't been a lot of consensus or systematic steps to say, hey, if the organization does, this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're good, that kind of thing. So, I'm speaking from my own understanding of, what could be beneficial from the organizations. I think one thing that came to my mind is that organizations could benefit from checking in more frequently with the employee. I think a lot of times they adopt it and they face potentially software developer or whoever who wants to sell the AI technology they develop to the company. And of course, those conversations are going to be primarily focused on the benefits, how it's enhancing the productivity. But I think when it comes to well-being of employee, we really need to hear the employees out and check in with them. Hey, how are you doing with using the AI? Is it going to be helpful? What improvements do you see potentially with the AI? So for the specific site that we collected data from for that research study, there was also frequent check-in with the employee. And the employees reported that not all the time the AI generated information was all that helpful. And that was an important piece of information that motivated our study, but also motivated the organization to say, hey, is there anything that we could do better to fine tune the AI technology a little bit instead of just blindly asking everyone to adopt it every single day? So I would say frequent check in would be helpful. I also think the way that organizations promote AI or communicate the adoption of AI matters. So, for example, we know that if the organization wants to promote the employees' engagement with AI, there are certain tactics that could enhance the influence, right? On the other hand, if the organization just mandates the use of AI without explaining its benefits or allowing the employees to have a say or autonomy, then it could almost be guaranteed that the initiative is going to get pushback from the employee standpoint. So I think even with the same technology, the way that organizations communicate it matters.
That's so important. I'm going to give away my next question a little bit with this question, but in thinking about this from the human employee impact aspect, what do we think? Do you ever find yourself thinking about what it means for the design and iteration of future AI? I always, my background was when social media was first rising,
Mm-hmm.
and I always remember talking a lot about the balance. If it's too inundated with ads, people aren't going to like to use the platform, so they've got to manage that. And I wonder, as we look at overwhelm with AI, will we see future iterations where they might be thinking we need to be not just comprehensive, but concise also?
Yes, yes, for sure. And this is partially just my imaginary,
Yeah, go
because
for it.
like I'm not like a software developer. I don't know whether that's like immediately feasible. But I think based on my research findings and my own kind of experience using AI myself, I think one area that could really benefit um, and protect people from information overload is to create more individuating kind of experience. And by that, I mean, for example, during the study, a lot of the research participants reported that, oh, this is not helpful because it was redundant. I already know this piece of information. Or that was not the immediate solution in my mind. So the information was pointing to another solution that I was not going with at the moment. So I think that could be potentially solved or alleviated if the AI is trained based on the data about each individual user. So then the AI would already know, oh, you have already be trained based on that information. You should already know that. So let me provide you something in addition, right? So I think that's something that I haven't experienced, and I think with the current, technology of AI, it might take a while for all the AI models to be trained based on individual information. But I definitely see that could be beneficial.
Yeah. So you talked about not being a software engineer, but I'm still fascinated by your predictions there. But you are a researcher who is studying a rapidly evolving area, and research itself takes time to set up, to execute, to analyze, to publish. And this is moving so fast. What are you looking at down the road when it comes to, because I think with overwhelm, that is a topic not enough of us are thinking about right now. And I think that's important. What's next that you're looking at related to AI?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And you asked it in a very nice way. I often got this
What now?
comment from reviewer. It's like, oh, will your findings hold if AI evolves? And I think this is kind of related, but you asked it in a much nicer way. I think there are fundamental, I wouldn't say limitation, but just characteristics of AI at this time that are not readily resolved in any time soon. And by that, I mean it is not trained easily with individual information. So that was one of the reasons why people experience information overload in that piece of study. Another phenomenon that I'm recently interested in is AI underperformance. So we usually think that, oh, AI is gonna be helpful, and we examine AI adoption and what benefit it accompanies, or what drawbacks it accompanies. But we don't typically look at how well is AI performing. Is it really aligned with our expectation? And I think that was another piece of the puzzle where we don't look at enough about how well it is performing, and also the kind of the fundamental characteristics, I would say, because AI is essentially kind of like a black box. It has this agency. So how is it different from computer or internet? Right? The computer, I can almost predict what it's going to do. Like I hit the shutdown button, it's going to shut down, right? So I think that's more of like a rule-based automation, like a self-driving vehicle or like a robot. I can really provide instruction about, oh, you're going to do this, and it's going to implement the human's instruction. But I think what makes some of the AI unique is that it has the agency. So you don't know what AI is going to provide you. And along with that, there is going to be a potential misalignment between my expectation for the AI to do this or to implement my order. But then AI has its own, peace of mind or whatever is understanding that what the human wants us to do. And these are not always aligned. And I think that's kind of another prevalent issue when a lot of people think, oh, this AI is not helpful, or I'm not going to use the AI for this type of task because it's just not good at it. I think that's a lot of the frustration about AI coming in. when it's perceived as not being intelligent enough, right? So I think that's another kind of phenomenon that I'm recently interested in. And if you ask me kind of like what I guess the field is kind of going into, I think I would say maybe boiling down to what is the fundamental characteristic of AI that differentiates it from other rule-based technology or automation technology. And I think AI underperformance is one of the examples where we ground our research in the fundamental AI characteristic and found this phenomenon that I don't think is gonna go away for a while, so it remained relevant for the working population. But of course, there could be other, examples and phenomena to be studied.
As Yiduo explained, AI can be powerful, but it can also overwhelm. To bring this closer to home, let's hear from Tippie student Rylee Lueken. Rylee shared her story at our Fall 2023 Story Lab showcase about arriving in a new place, college, and navigating the feeling of being overwhelmed. Her experience offers lessons for anyone trying to manage complexity, whether it's AI tools, work, or life transitions. Here's Rylee.
They say that college is a whirlwind of new friendships, challenging classes, and moments of self-development. For me, all three things were true, but I only expected the first two things to be true. My story starts on August 13th, rolling into Iowa City. We had 2 cars full of stuff, one with decorations and furniture, and the other one with clothes packed into boxes. I really like clothes, if you couldn't tell by that disproportion. When we got into Iowa City, I was so excited. I was excited to meet new people and make new friends. I was excited to set up all the furniture that I'd been collecting all month from Target and Amazon. Overall, I knew it was going to be epic. But there was also this sense of urgency, which I didn't really anticipate. You only had 30 minutes to get all your stuff unloaded before you had to move the car to a faraway parking lot. As we move stuff up to the dorms cart by cart, there's people walking up and down the hallways saying hi and making plans for the evening. And so I felt this need to rush to get my parents out the door so I could work on meeting all these people and getting settled. But the ironic part is that once my parents actually left, a sense of unsettledness kind of flowed through my body and remained for the next month or two. But I trucked on and I started meeting new people left and right, which was awesome. I was enjoying some of my classes, which were a good mix of gen ed, major and minor courses, and just interesting topics. So I became settled both academically and physically, but emotionally, I kind of felt like I was on this tilt-a-whirl ride, with my feet never quite settled underneath me. And so by October, tears were shed and some doubts lingered. I distinctly remember calling my mom on a Saturday when there was no home football games, sitting in my dimly lit dorm room, crying, telling her that I did not like it here. I was just spinning and spinning. I liked some of my classes, but was unsure if my sociology major was still a good fit for me. I loved all my new friends, but I had this perception that our relationship had to be just like my high school ones of 4 to 6 years. Pretty unrealistic. And so everyone said that college is the best 4 years of your life, but they failed to mention that it's not without growth and change. And so that's what my mom said to me, in that soothing tone that moms give you when they know that you're upset. And so I trucked on. I made it through first semester, a finals week, a winter break, a snow apocalypse. And coming back from winter break this January, I felt a sense of comfort that wasn't there before. I moved more clothes in from Christmas presents, and I was excited to see all my friends and hear about how their winter breaks went. We made new plans for new adventures and memories. We went sledding on the Pentacrest, all bundled up in snow gear, stacked kind of like turtles on the snowboard ramps built by other students. We started cooking Sunday dinners, think like spaghetti, stir fry, stuff like that, in our dorm room lounges on a skillet. And so we just had a lot of fun just being present in the moment. And so with each passing day, I became more comfortable with all the twists and turns of my college experience. I learned the importance of resilience, the power of new friendships, and the value of change. And though the tilt-a-whirl continues to spin around me at times, I face it with a new sense of confidence and excitement, all thanks to my first year of college. Thank you.
That was Rylee Lueken at our Fall 2023 Story Lab Showcase in downtown Iowa City. You can watch the video of Rylee's story and other Tippie storytellers via the link in this week's show notes. Now let's go back to Yiduo Shao one last time for a final tip-e for you to remember in your work.
Be open-minded about AI and its influence, and also take care of you or whoever the users of AI. Don't assume that it's always going to be beneficial. Be ready for its positive and negative impact and try to deal with it, I would say.
Hearing from Yiduo shows us that AI isn't automatically helpful. It's a tool, and using it requires awareness, boundaries, and thoughtful choices. Managing AI overload can help you learn more effectively, make better decisions, and stay in control of your work. In our next episode, Tippie Finance Professor Ashish Tiwari will explore AI in investing. Can AI really beat the market, or is human judgment still key? This episode of Tippie Leads was written and produced by me, Nick Westergaard, with special thanks to Yiduo Shao and Tippie student Rylee Lueken. To learn more about our faculty guests, their research, and more, go to tippie.uiowa.edu/Tippie Leads. If you like this episode, share it with a friend or coworker, or better yet, subscribe to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to listen. And if you're feeling generous, consider leaving us a rating or review to help others find the show. This is Nick Westergaard signing off. On behalf of everyone at Tippie, thanks for listening, and go Hawks!
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Hennika Watkis-Porter hosts The Entrepreneurial You, empowering entrepreneurs with insights on leadership, business, and success. Hennika, tell listeners what to expect from your show.
So we provide innovative business strategies and practical solutions to common entrepreneurial challenges.
And where can people subscribe?
Find us at hennikawatkisporter.com, as well as the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcasts.net, or search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe.